to the Rebel Edge. We are here again with head men's tennis coach here at Ole Miss, Toby Hansson. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. Today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is imagery and visualization.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell me your opinion, your experiences, how you've seen it used or not used?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that personally I've probably used it a lot as a child when I grew up around the sport of tennis and other sports, but just watching others, other people, professionals or whatever, people that I looked up to playing, and then I kind of imagined myself being in that situation myself, and it could have been, playing against a door or a backboard or something, and just imagining that I was playing a match, and just, and then later on kind of going back to that and seeing myself doing it over and over. And so I think that's, when you're a kid, you imagine things, you play around. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably when I did a lot of that kind of training and not really thinking about that I was actually doing it.
So it's just kind of fun, too.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. It was fun to play on center court at Wimbledon. It was fun to imagine yourself being out there and towel off and hear the crowd and play the game of tennis that you love to do. So
it's really the only time that we can experience true unencumbered mm-hmm. freedom to play and have whatever happen, right. Whatever happens. And so there's a lot of benefit to it that we can get into. One of the things that I'll start with is there is it's really important to safeguard what images you bring up. So if I say something to you like, hey, don't jump in the lake.
Exactly.
You just got an image, right?
Exactly.
Of jumping in a lake. I didn't have to tell you to bring up the image. It comes up automatically because our brain thinks in images. So whatever, if you think, don't double fault.
Well, you're going to double fault.
Yes, because our bodies want to be told what to do, and the way it does that is it creates images of intent, and they actually imprint on the hippocampus, like this is a brain thing. So your body tries to match that image of intent, and then you see how it went, you adjust the image for feedback, and then you try again. But that means that you really need to be careful about what images pop up in your head.
I found myself as well when I was visualizing later on, as I was a little bit older, sometimes I would lose the point, or I would lose the game or something, and that's something that was difficult for me to sometimes see myself in a more positive way, winning that match or whatever it was. So I had to work on that and to kind of overcome those things, but it's certainly visualizing yourself or visualizing a situation, if you do it the right way, can have a tremendous impact.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I actually encourage not visualizing a mistake or not visualizing a loss, but going to that moment and rehearsing a response.
Right.
So, a ball flies past you, get aced. Do you throw your racket?
Right.
Well, you can, maybe, but you can have the emotion and the disappointment, choose how you are going to respond, choose the thought that you want to have. I can do better, or, that was unlike, however you want to phrase it. And then when you rehearse that, it builds a ton of confidence because you've done it before.
Right. Every time you do something and you repeat that, like you're saying, it's all about the repetition and having that feeling that's going to remain. That's the only thing that's going to remain. And that's why I always try to, I think we discussed this prior to this in the previous meeting as well, that when you do something really well, you need to stop in that situation, and you need to try to get the athlete to think about that, what they just did. If they came up with a great shot, or whatever it may have been, put a word on that. How did that feel? Can you close your eyes and see yourself doing that again? So every time you repeat that, you're storing that same feeling again, because in the end of the day, that feeling is the only thing that's going to remain. And that feeling is something that, it's going to remain in your subconscious. And then half a second before you step out on the court or you're hitting that shot, half a second before you can even think about it, that feeling would just come again. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it's crucial to make sure that you stop when you're doing it well, put a name on that, or let the player himself choose a name for it, and associated with that name is a feeling of happiness, wow, great shot, whatever you want to associate with it. And that same kind of, and you can just tell the player, hey, tonight I want you to close your eyes, and those three names, or the two names that you had today on the court, those two moments, I want you to be able to recreate those moments again. Mm-hmm. And so then you're repeating that feeling again and again and again. And so then you're making it, in my opinion, it's really a practical way to handle visualization.
Absolutely.
Instead of just saying, hey, I'm going to, sit back and I'm going to think about a whole match and the way I prepare for it. Can be difficult sometimes to find the time or to have the actual, that you probably have a lot of other things going on in your mind at that point. So I think that you can use the time and practice to do that as well.
So I'm going to drop some science on you.
Yeah.
Because I get really excited about it. So one of the phrases that, if you've been around any psychologist, you have heard is that neurons that fire together, wire together. And that's what you're talking about.
Yep.
So our brain has this really cool ability to adapt. It's called neuroplasticity. It's one of my favorite things about our little brains. That means that our experience shapes our brain, and our behavior shapes our brain. That means that we can change our brain, because when you do something, two neurons fire together. When you do it 5 times, they fire 5 times. When you do it over and over, they wire together so that pathway is smooth and automatic. So you don't have to think about it. You're just going to react, because that neural connection, that neural pathway is there. And that's why I say your body knows what to do without being told. So, that's the response that you have trained years and years and years to have. Right?
Right, exactly.
So
and then you start believing in yourself.
Yes, right? Because you know it's there when you can trust it.
Like we discussed the previous time, that's when you gain that confidence in yourself. Mm-hmm. Your automation that you're talking about, that is automatic, that you don't have to think about it, it's there. And when you've done it and you've really created that positive image of yourself and that positive feeling in that situation, then, like you're saying, then you don't have to think anymore, because in that situation, the brain, I think, can only disturb you and create more problems for you. So you have to trust yourself.
You have to trust yourself, because when those neurons have fired together and they've wired together, conscious thought is actually activating different neural connections and interfering with that automation. So here's what's cool about this. The brain does not know the difference between you and I hitting balls back and forth on the court and us using our imagination and doing it in our mind.
Right.
So the neural firing happens regardless of whether we're doing it in real life or doing it in our mind. So what happens when you want to correct a technique, when you want to replay what you did well, when you want to solidify and lay a foundation for your skills, then getting in extra practice without tearing up your body, or slowing things down and doing it in your mind so that your body can see what it's supposed to do, to lay down a new neural pathway that replaces a bad habit or a bad technique.
Right.
So it is fire.
And it's actually it's even more efficient than actually doing it sometimes, because when you do it in your mind, hopefully, you will make the shot, or you will make the basket, or whatever you do, whatever sport you're playing, you will see yourself repeat that positive result as well. Yeah. And so you can't miss in your mind.
For sure.
Right. So I know that there's been an example in basketball. You had one group of players that were shooting the ball, physically shooting the ball for X amount of time, maybe a month or something like that. And then you had the other group that they were only practicing it in their mind, and then they put them together and they competed against each other. And the group that was just doing it mentally and visualizing it, seeing that shot going in, the free throws going in, time and time again, they actually had a better result in the end. So
for sure.
It makes sense.
Because that confidence is there too, because you've done it before, and your body feels that confidence, and it's so important. So being able to do whatever you want in your mind when you're trying to build a technique, when you're trying to build a skill, it can be, the outcome is not nearly as important, because you don't actually control making the basket if you're trying a new technique. You control everything up until the ball leaves your fingertips, or up until the racket strikes the ball, or leaves the racket. And so being able to focus on your body movements, your feeling is important, that feeling of freedom and confidence and joy. We're supposed to be enjoying it, right?
Exactly.
And so imagery is so important for all of those reasons. And when we say, sometimes people use imagery and visualization interchangeably. For me, I say imagery is what we've been talking about. And what's cool about what you had talked about was the memories, bringing up a memory of what went really well in practice, is memories are stronger than, it's all important, it's all helpful, but memories are stronger than an image that you haven't done before. Right. Because you remember it, you can tap in to that. And when you create these images using every detail you can, what were you wearing, how hot was it, what did the racket feel like in your hand, who was there, and who, what sounds did you hear, I
think that's a different if you have, let's say, one huge event that's coming up that you haven't been at before. Let's say you're going to be an Olympian for the first time, and you know that the stadium is going to be packed with 100,000 people, and you can, to prepare yourself, you can go in there having done that in your mind a few times and hearing the crowd, and try to obviously be as precise and as in your description of what you're in the situation you were in, so you can prepare that way. But I think that on a daily basis, we as coaches, we need to find a way to work with this kind of tool on a daily basis. Absolutely. In a practical way, not only for something that's maybe you're going to do in 2 or 3 years down the road, which is also hopefully beneficial, but just to work with it every day. And I think that that's why it is so important to get the athlete to be aware of the benefits, and also and really take charge of it, and be the one that is putting a name on the situation and the feeling, making sure that they are the ones that are evaluating themselves when they are doing something. That I got that same feeling there when I was doing it again, and that they put a name on it, and they are involved in the process of it. And it could be, like you're saying, you're supposed to be a happy feeling, and so why don't you smile and give me a thumbs up when it's really a positive feeling when you're hitting that shot, and do that every time when you have that feeling, so you can repeat it again.
And visualizing, feeling confident, feeling relaxed, feeling excited, visualizing the execution, right, the smoothness of whatever it is, visualizing how you want it to be, right, will also help you feel more comfortable when you actually are in that situation, because again, you've done it before. And so I think it's also helpful if, let's say in practice, something didn't go exactly the way you wanted to stop and real quick in your mind run through it and execute it the way that you wanted it to go. Because I know there's some athletes that when things go wrong, they keep at it and keep at it and keep, and they're like, I just can't get it, I'm messing up every time. Well, first of all, you don't want those neurons to wire together, right? And it sounds like you're just building frustration. You're not practicing. Right. So being able to stop and have that successful execution, and remember, it doesn't matter that it just only happened in your mind. That's just as powerful and just as important. And so now you haven't done it every time in a way that wasn't what you wanted. You've mixed it up, and you have some success to build off of too.
Right.
Yeah. So go through what's something that you want to practice, and set a timer on your phone. I like that because I can put my phone down and not worry about it anymore, and know that I'm not going to fall asleep or get lost in my imagery or visualization. Right. So I set it for 1 minute, maybe 2, and just go through your mind some of your skills, some of the feelings that you want to have. Remember those matches, games that you've had that went really well, and how that felt to feel so confident and so trusting of yourself. That's another point that you brought up that's so important. And when you can practice imagery and visualization, you're getting in extra reps, and it will give you an edge. And that edge we call the rebel edge.